Arash, the viewer said, what's the definition of future considerations? How would you explain that?
Usually a pretty irrelevant piece that's going to be depth, maybe, in your system. And depending on which league, might get to the show, might not, may even be some cash down the road to open things up. But basically a lot of nothing, Roddy.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't want this player. You take him, and if it works out, we'll figure it out later. That's kind of my take on that. There are so many things to talk about with you, so I don't know where to start. What would you like to talk about today here on your favorite show, bud?
My favorite show? That's a good question. There's so much going on, and yet not a ton going on. I know this is not a basketball show. I'm so interested in the Dame Lillard situation because effectively now the player and the agent have come out and said, we want to go nowhere but Miami. Oh, okay. So if you're the Trailblazers front office right now, and I think this is kind of transferable to almost any sport, if you're the Trailblazers front office now, what do you do? Franchise icon, your leverage in the deal just went down the toilet. It's been reported everywhere, and the agent came out today and said it. So I don't know what happens now.
Oh, man. Do you not sense we're seeing this more and more and more, and in all leagues, that the players they've got the leverage? Huh? Well, do you think you're nodding your head, you agree. So do you think that's a good or a bad thing?
I mean, I like the idea of player empowerment. Why not have the labor involved? Have a little bit of say and a little bit of power in all of this. Roddy, I got to tell you, man, like after following sports the way we do all these years, I think our parents lied to us when they told us the grown-ups knew what they were doing, because so often executives, and I think there's a real distinction between executives and leaders. Often the executives don't know what they're doing. And the beauty of sport is that there's a scoreboard and a track record that you can go back and look at. So you can evaluate trades, you can evaluate draft picks, you can evaluate decisions, and then because of the scoreboard, you are what your record says you are, as Parcells would say. So the fact that a player's coming out saying, I don't want to do this, I don't want to be part of that, I mean, there are very few who have that power now. Good on them. Good on them. They've earned it.
Well, I'm with you, but not everybody's going to agree on this. John in Winnipeg writes, he says, players in pro sports have way too much control these days. Frustrating for fans.
So, John, I would say this. There are at most 2 players on a roster that have that kind of control and power. At most. If John's he said it was from Winnipeg, Roddy. What kind of leverage and power do you think a third or fourth liner on your Jets has? What kind of leverage or power do you think a special teamer or a backup on the Bombers roster has? Outside of Zach, does anybody on the Bombers roster have any real significant power to do, to orchestrate things? So, like a lot of things, like, Roddy, we could talk about the NIL and we could talk about the transfer portal. NIL, people are like, well, this guy's making $15 million, this quarterback's going to get $15 million over the course of his time at a program. Okay, yeah, that's one. Now let's talk about everybody else. And so, yes, some players have power, but very few of them have it.
You don't get to talk enough CFL. Does Chris Jones coach his last game tonight if the Elks lose in Sask?
I've thought a lot about this. And you and I have known Chris a long time. I go back 20 years with Chris from his time in Montreal when I was first getting in the business. And one thing that I've always thought has been admirable about Chris Jones is how loyal he is to his people and how loyal he is back to the people who are loyal to him. And in a cutthroat, me professional sports existence, That is rare to find, and I appreciate that so much about Jones. But it's not working with McAdoo calling plays. It's just not. There is no imagination. They are very vanilla. They are very basic. They are very predictable. And it's not working. And when you talk to people around the league, Roddy, what they'll tell you is Edmonton has talent. There's ability there. The coaching is the issue. And I think this really comes down. I appreciate Chris's loyalty, but at some point, he has no problem sending players out the door. At some point, when you're evaluating who and what you are and what you have, you got to be real with yourself. And you got to be real with your organization.
It's a results-based business, as they say.
Well, that's it.
And I appreciate the results simply aren't there. And you're right. The football people all say McAdoo's the problem. Quite frankly, I don't know enough about it to say whether it is or not, but I do know they feel they have a lot of talent. So somewhere along the line, there's a disconnect.
Yeah, and I'm not saying this is all on McAdoo. It's not. It's not all on McAdoo, right? Taylor Cornelius has got to live up to his end of the bargain better. Players have to be better. Other coaches have to be better. But you have to be better on offense.
Well, they said and I'm not arguing with you. Lang writes in and says the play calling is the issue. Well, in Sask last year, Jason Maas was the problem. Gets fired, and he ends up head coach in Montreal, and they seem to be doing all right. So that's the one thing about football that's very hard to find. It's like a needle in a haystack in some cases, certainly for a guy like me. And lastly, somebody brought up NBA salaries. We don't have time here to get into it, but what is your take on Fred VanVleet? What is it, 3 years, $140 million? Is it in Houston?
$130 million. Remember we were just talking about the executives and how smart they are? Fred VanVleet went undrafted. So 30 general managers and scouting directors and personnel people twice passed on Fred. They could have had him for next to nothing as a second-round pick. People look at that and say, oh, man, Fred's overpaid. He's making too much money. Let's remember, folks, if that's what the player is getting paid, how much is the owner making? Never forget, Roddy, what did 2020 teach us? What did COVID teach us? These leagues, these owners were willing to play in front of nobody. And they didn't do it out of the goodness of their hearts. That's how lucrative this business is. You know, pro football team, Washington selling for $6 billion with a B dollars. Phoenix Suns selling for $3 billion. The $130 million Fred's getting, just a drop in the bucket.
Oh, man, we could go on forever. One more in 90 seconds. I got this tip from the basketball world. You're in it. I'm just hearing rumors, but Masai Ujiri knows what he's doing. And the divorce with Nick Nurse, what I'm told is stick with Masai. He knows what he's doing. Any thoughts on that?
It was time for Nick to go. Nick did a smart job of orchestrating his exit. He knew exactly what he was doing there. Maybe Masai knew what he was doing with Nick Nurse, but I just don't understand what the Raptors are doing at all. They blew it at the trade deadline. Fred's an expiring contract. You got nothing for him, and then you said, kind of going into the draft, we think we can run it back with this nucleus because we can be the next Miami Heat. And now my colleague Michael Grange is reporting Pascal may be on the way out. What are you doing? What are you? Are you going for it? Or are you not? Are you rebuilding or are you not? It just feels like they're spinning their tires right now, Rod.
Like sands through the hourglass. Arash, we covered a lot. Great to see you, my friend. Thanks for the time. Have a great day.
Great to see you, pal. Enjoy the barbecue in North Carolina, huh?
We're going tonight. Thank you. The great Arash Madani from Sportsnet.